Okay, so my name is Erin. I am the Education and Communications Manager here at the Cannabis Alliance. I'd like to thank you for joining us this afternoon. It is our hope that anyone interested in commercial cannabis here in Nevada County will take the time to tune into these webinars, educate themselves, and continue to be or become stewards of the environment and of our community. The Get Legit educational series provides the preparation necessary to assist in securing a local cultivation permit and state cultivation license. The series includes webinars, support groups, business skills trainings, and a mentor program. Hi, Daniel. All webinars are online, free of charge, and open to the public. So what is the Alliance? The Alliance is a nonprofit trade association who represents the local cannabis industry here in Nevada County. Our mission is to support public policy initiatives through representative advocacy and provide educational opportunities for business growth and success. There are ways to get involved. You can become a member. The Nevada County Cannabis Alliance plays a vital role in shaping policies that strengthen the economic sustainability and success of our locally licensed cannabis industry. If you are a licensed cannabis business here in Nevada County that has benefited from cannabis policies that we have worked on, we would love for you to join our membership to ensure that we can continue serving our local cannabis community here in Nevada County. We appreciate your support so much. Some services that we provide to our members are a consistent voice and representation locally and at the statewide level. We have year-round continuing education that includes compliance and regulatory workshops, business skills trainings, and cannabis farming best practice seminars and more, much like the one you are on today. We help you navigate the permit and ongoing compliance processes with the resources and support needed. We have a buddy program that pairs permitted farmers with new farmers who want to learn from more experienced growers. And we have seasonal industry mixers and events for community and connection. You can also become a sponsor. If you're a local business looking to support the cannabis industry here in Nevada County, we would love for you to join us. We're so grateful for our current sponsors who believe in the work that we do, and we could not do this work without you. Thank you all, and a big shout out to our allied industry business sponsors. We have Ag Natural, Cramner Engineering, Plan Air Landscape Architecture, Humboldt Seed Company, Mr. B's Green Trees, Gold Coast Botanicals, Elevation 2477. And we thank you all so much for your support. We're happy to have you on board. If you are interested in becoming a sponsor, you can email us at info@cannabisalliance.org. We also have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. You can go to facebook.com/Nevada County Alliance or follow us on Instagram at Nevada County Alliance. We also have a bi-monthly newsletter you can subscribe to. That's on our website, nccannabisalliance.org/subscribe. I will also put all these links in the chat because it's a lot to memorize. So we have some upcoming webinars. In about a month, we have a webinar called The Cannabis Connection, Your Endocannabinoid System. This will be on Wednesday, April 29th from 3 to 4 p.m. with Melinda Ruckles, who is an RN and MSN registered medical cannabis nurse. We will be exploring how cannabis interacts with the body through the science of the endocannabinoid system and learn practical applications for wellness and therapeutic use, current research findings, considerations for safe, informed consumption, and so on. I'll put that link in the chat, but you can also just go to nccannabisalliance.org/getlegit to see all the upcoming webinars we have going on. And we have an upcoming event with the Alliance. It's really just a TBD right now. It's supposed to be in the summertime, but it's going to be our 10th year anniversary party, celebrating 10 years with the Cannabis Alliance. So that'll be a lot of fun. It'll be for members and supporters, and we look forward to sharing more information about that with you so we can all celebrate together. Okay, and I think that's pretty much it, the format of today's webinar. Daniel's going to give a presentation with a Q&A to follow. If you have questions, your participation is encouraged, and we have a chat section and Q&A section for you to use. And feel free to use those to ask questions, as that will make the webinar more useful for everyone. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website at nccannabisalliance.org/getlegit. And that's all that I have for today. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Daniel to introduce himself. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here today. Very excited about today's topic, amending native soil and working with native soils. It's something that not a whole lot of cannabis farmers are familiar with. But by the end of today, I think you'll have a good basis of understanding. I do have to apologize that I was unable to illustrate my slideshow, so it's just words and discussion, but we'll have a good time doing it. So let's see how I share my screen. Uh, share screen. Oh, host disabled screen sharing.
I don't know why that happens every time. Sorry, I'm trying to find the button to do that. My bad. All right, one moment. It's always hidden. I'm almost there. Show captions.
I'm actually having trouble getting it to pull up presentation mode here.
Okay, there you go. My goodness. Okay, you should be able to share now.
Okay. So, all right. I know it's not in proper sharing mode, but you should be able to see the slides nonetheless. And again, sorry, there's no images. We'll have to use some imagination today. Today, we're going to be talking about working with native soil rather than replacing it with imported media. A lot of California growers today assume that they need raised beds, imported mixes, or bagged fertility to grow successfully. In my experience, especially here in the Sierra foothills, native soils can be very productive once we improve the structure and activate the biology. This workshop is about using simple regenerative tools like compost, castings, manures, gypsums, and minerals to turn challenging soils into resilient living systems. Uh, okay, who am I? I'm Daniel Fink, owner and operator of Down Ohm Farms. I practice regenerative cultivation methods in native California soils. And I am also a fertility and crop advisor for Vital Garden Supply. So I consult with hundreds of farms every year on their soil management practices. Uh, First slide is about clay soil. Clay soil is what we have here in the Sierra foothills. It exhibits uh, poor drainage, compaction, and it's hard when dry and it's sticky when wet. And a lot of people believe that it is unusable. Um, there's low organic matter in our native soils because the topsoils were washed away, but these are not problems. These are just uh, different parameters to work with. One good thing about clay soils is that they store nutrients extremely well, and um, low organic matter means that we have room to improve. Depending on what type of clay soil you have, you may have excess magnesium. That's something else that we can deal with. So here we want to reframe clay soils, not as bad soil, but as just something to work with. The benefits of clay soils, as stated here, um, it shows you that it has a high nutrient holding capacity and high water retention, which is great in a drought prone area like the foothills. What we want to do is bring that soil into balance. Sand drains too fast, clay holds very tight. The goal is to create a balanced structure. When building soil structure, first we look at the at the physical attributes. Uh, Real problem is that there's a lack of biology, whereas biology will help to aggregate soil and create better soil structure. So it's neither too loose nor too tight and can hold water. Uh, the second step is adding soil biology. Some soils are more bacterially dominant, some are more fungal dominant, and microbial life builds healthy soil. Just checking my notes on the side here. Okay. I just mentioned aggregates. Aggregates in soil are when your soil is neither dusty or chunky. It is small granules, a couple millimeters apart. The way aggregates are created is through glomerulates, which are bacterial glues. And so when you have good aggregation in your soil, that means that you have good air and water flow through your soil and good root movement. Aggregation creates the oxygen pathways and water channels and microbial habitat, whereas clay is stacked so tightly together that it doesn't allow any of those things in. Core principle of my methodology is let's fix things biologically, not mechanically. A lot of conventional farming would focus on physically manipulating the soil, tilling it, ripping it, flipping it upside down. And long term, I don't think that's a good strategy, although clay does need to be opened up sometimes with tillage. It's not all about the physical reorganization. With a year or two of good biological applications, microbes will fix the soil in the same way. I think we're getting to compost. Yeah, okay. So we've identified the problems and the things that need correcting. And so we have to come up with a strategy for opening this soil up. That function is usually achieved through adding organic matter in the form of compost. Compost acts like a glue between mineral particles, minerals being your clay-based soil. We need to get aeration in there. Minerals here is speaking to mineral balancing. Clay soils tend to be deficient in calcium, nitrogen, phosphorus. Sometimes they have a lot of potassium. Sometimes they have a lot of magnesium. So it's not like they're devoid of all the minerals needed for plant life, but they are out of balance. We've spoken about biology, and then mulch will really do wonders. I've seen people be very, very shocked by what continuous mulch and water will do to pure clay soils. The intense heat and sunlight that we have here in the Sierra foothills and all of California really wreaks havoc on exposed soil. So right here, mulch, big, big, important thing. Bare soil is dying soil. And so in order to preserve the hard work we put into our soil, we always want to keep it mulched. Mentioned organic matter and compost. Something that a lot of people don't realize, worm castings are a compost in terms of the way they function in the soil. It's a broken down organic matter that will help to open up the clay soil. Depending on the severity of the compaction, we'd be looking at between 1 and 3 inches of top dressing of compost or worm castings, or a combination of the two. Going on to the next slide. These are some ingredients people like to add into native soils. They can be blended into compost and tilled or ripped into native soil. Pumice is a lava rock. It's an expanded lava rock. Those will both create air pockets in your soil and keep it slightly fluffy. Rice hulls are a good option if you can find a clean version. They contain lots of silica, but they do break down relatively quickly. So most people choose to add rice hulls on an annual or maybe every 2 or 3 year basis. I've seen many people add sand. Adding sand to clay is not a good idea without having lots and lots of organic matter to add as well. As it says right here, it will make concrete. Uh, I've spoken about previously about healthy soils being a good balance of sand, silt, and clay. And by blending the organic matter with the clay, we create silty particles. And so when adding lots of organic matter to clay, adding some amount of sand can be beneficial. But again, without the organic matter, without the compost and the worm castings, you will make concrete. Some minerals that can help to support opening the structure of the clay are gypsum and basalt. Those are both mined rock minerals available in powders and pellets. They're both very cheap, under $20 for a 50-pound bag. There's a lot of calcium present in gypsum. It's calcium sulfate, so that's calcium and sulfur. That's a good one for most purposes. Sometimes people will choose lime over gypsum if they need to adjust their pH. We will talk about that another day, probably. Biological inputs include not just the compost and the castings themselves, but compost teas and extracts. I've discussed compost teas and extracts on previous workshops, but I'll give a little quick run through on that. That is essentially using about 5 pounds per 5 gallons of tea of a good quality compost or worm castings. You put that into a filter bag, imagine like a paint strainer bag or even an old stocking, and you slosh that around in the water very actively until you infuse the water with all the microbes that were present in the compost. The water should turn a deep murky brown. Some good ingredients to add to that would be fish hydrolysate liquids. And then you apply that directly to your soils, and that is spreading beneficial microbes from the compost all over your soil without having to use a lot of compost. Where is this? Where? What scenario might you use compost tea in? Is a scenario where you can't bring in yards and yards of compost. If you are able to wheelbarrow in lots and lots of good compost and top dress it right onto your area, that's going to be best. If that's just simply impossible, bring in what you can and then use compost teas and extracts to spread the active biology to the area. Here we go with mulch again. Here's some options for mulching your soils. Straw. I recommend rice straw as a first line of defense, as it doesn't come with any seeds. Although some people choose wheat or other things because they actually want the grass to come up and grow through it. Wood chips, we have lots and lots of access to wood chips here locally. They're a great option, although you do want to avoid pine and cedar wood chips until they've aged at least a year or two and no longer smell like pine or cedar. Cover crops are my favorite mulch. That can include just something as simple as rye grass, just seeding rye grass on an unused cultivation area will keep the soil covered. Even better would be a blend of grasses, legumes, peas, beans, so you get some diversity of root structure. Like said before, bare soil is dead soil, so mulch is very, very important. Here's some example application recipes for different scenarios. We'll go through a few of them. And so hopefully one of these scenarios might be applicable to what you're working on at home. Field refers to acreage. Maybe this would apply to an acre cut into planting beds and walkways, assuming planting beds are probably about 30 inches wide. Uh, we would recommend 2 inches of compost with a half an inch or an inch of pumice. Um, an appropriate amount of gypsum on an acre is 1 to 2,000 pounds, and some type of mulch, likely rice straw, at a scale this large. That would be ripped or tilled into the top 5 to 6 inches of the soil, only in the planting beds. And that would be a good way to get some row crops going in a field. In a raised bed, this is a classic recipe to fill a raised bed with healthy soils. Soil, 40% soil, meaning topsoil. So if you build a raised bed and you can scrape some topsoil from the local area, you can load that into your raised bed. You can open up that clay soil with 30% compost and another 30% pumice or perlite or rice hulls for aeration. And that's a great way to make a raised bed with your native soil. That kind of raised bed would have a higher water holding capacity than most because of the native clay. When working in native soils, you want to consider your irrigation strategies. Slow, deep irrigation and avoiding saturation by doing it infrequently. Often, potting soils in a raised bed might require watering almost every day, whereas native soils, you would want to do a long soak infrequently, maybe watering as infrequently as once a week, as opposed to once a day with a potting soil in a container. But you do want to avoid saturation. When the surface is just starting to be dry, there's still plenty of water in a native soil 6 to 10 inches down where the roots are. Some common mistakes with native soil is over tillage. That means tilling over and over, year after year after year, really trying to powderize the soil for ease of planting, but then you destroy the microbiology that you're building there. You lose organic matter, and then your minerals are floating away in the wind. Overwatering, like we just spoke about, again, when the surface of native soil is just drying out, there's still plenty of water deep down. Ignoring the benefits of biology is a common mistake in native soils. Sadly, a lot of our native healthy farm soils have been degraded terribly because people just apply fertilizer year after year after year without doing any compost applications or introducing any beneficial biology. I'm always encouraging people towards finding the balance of biology and chemistry. So not just fertilizer, but beneficial biology through the use of good worm castings and compost. Timeline of building a healthy native soil is over seasons. It is typically not something that is incredibly productive on the very first go, although sometimes it is. The biology, the benefits of the biology compound year over year over year. Those microbes are growing exponentially and they fluctuate through the seasons. And so if you treat it well, you minimize tillage, you feed it compost and good organic ingredients, the benefits of that biology will increase your yield and your disease resistance year over year. 3 rules to live by with native soil: add organic matter as much as possible. That can mean garden waste, the leaves and branches that you grew right in those beds. That can mean bringing in a half an inch or an inch of compost every single year. It could mean making worm castings from your kitchen scraps and adding that, or even raking up leaves or grass clippings and adding those to your beds. That all counts as organic matter. And what that will do is support the biology. That will give the biology more food to consume to convert into healthy nutrients that will be available to your plant. And always keep it covered. Uh, Bare soil is dead soil, and that applies to potting soil or native soil. To really, really improve the structure of native soil after adding compost to it, you got to keep it mulched and you got to keep it reasonably moist, or it will start to die and physically collapse. Not only will the microbial populations collapse, but it will physically collapse and sink and become compacted. And we don't want that. I think I spoke faster than I expected to, and we are in my favorite part, which is the Q&A. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, let's Q&A.
let's
So,
Q&A. Awesome, Danielle. That was great.
yeah,
Um,
sorry there's no photos. I ran out of time.
That's okay. That's okay. We can all visualize and use our brains. So if anyone has questions, start thinking of them now. You can raise your hand on the bottom toolbar. There's a raise hand button. You can actually speak your question if you want, or you can just put your question in the Q&A or leave it in the chat, whichever option works for you. We'll check those boxes periodically. But to start, I have a few questions. They're kind of random, not in any order. Um, but to start with, I guess we'll go backwards. You were talking about just adding compost to the beds, and I was wondering if that compost needed to be, if, like you said, table scraps. I wonder if that needs to be broken down compost that you've been working on throughout the year, or if, can you just like toss in some lettuce?
So table scraps we're going to call compost fodder.
Okay.
Table scraps are not compost.
Okay.
Compost, by definition, is broken down organic matter and aged. And so there's a few different types of compost we've spoken about on previous webinars. Thermophilic compost is hot compost. That's the one that most people are familiar with. And then there's more slow cold composting methods. um, Worm farming is also a cold composting. Uh, I recommend worm farming at home for everybody for kitchen scraps because it's very easy to maintain. Uh, Hot composting requires quite a large pile. We're talking a cubic yard or two, something almost as tall as you. So that's a lot of material to work with. Um, and I mentioned manures early on in the series. Manures are a common ingredient in composts to add nitrogen to the mix. Uh, I do not ever recommend using raw manures as they can introduce pathogens to your soil. Um, and well, yeah, we've done a lot on composting on previous webinars. In this case, I'm just going to suggest you source compost that um, is either made by someone skilled, because making bad compost will kill your plants. You're introducing the wrong kind of biology to your soil. Worm castings are a really safe bet. It's kind of hard to screw it up. And if you're going to source compost, find something that's certified organic and not green waste. Green waste certified compost is the most common organic compost out there, and it's made from municipal waste, and it's pretty gnarly stuff. It comes laden with salts, and it comes with excess sodium and sometimes even uh, toxic waste from municipal waste. It can have antibiotics in it. It can have heavy metals in it. It has all kinds of gnarly stuff. So if you're going to grow food with it, you want to get compost that's ideally made from plants and wood and manure.
That
Uh,
makes sense.
yeah.
Worm castings. I'm personally not familiar with that, but how easy is it to just start like a worm farm, basically?
So a worm farm is doable if you can dedicate mm, a couple square feet outside to it. It doesn't smell, but it can attract some minor animals. And there's lots of different options. if you look online for a worm tower, that's a really common option. And it's a bunch of different boxes that stack on top of each other. And you add the fresh scraps in the top, and then the worms travel up and down through the different boxes. And so you add fresh boxes to the top with your fresh scraps. And so then the bottom box is mostly digested worm castings. Um, yeah. Um,
Cool.
yeah. If it, As I always say, if anybody has any really specific questions about something, reach out to me directly because there's 15 different ways to grow worms. Um, and they're all okay. So
And that's downhomefarms@gmail, right?
yeah, downhomefarms@gmail.com.
All right, I just put that in the chat, you guys. Um, Also gonna put your Instagram at Down Farms to reach out. Cool. Okay, that's interesting. I've never really had much experience with worm castings or anything like that. And then another question I had is, so the over-tilling that you mentioned, that's essentially going into the soil and just ripping up that whole layer of topsoil that um,
Yeah, but over-tilling would be doing it every single year.
every year. So
Yeah.
you don't want to do it either ever, or if you have clay, I guess it needs to have some tilling done.
So if you're on a slow path to a productive garden, then potentially no tillage is necessary. But if you'd like a productive garden year one, it would be recommended to do an initial tillage with a thick compost application, gypsum in there, like we talked about. And that will really go a long way to open up the clay soil initially. And then after that, you can do cover crop rotations and avoid tillage by keeping your soil active at all times.
Okay. And so you're just placing the amendments on top of the soil. Like the next year you just start piling it on top again, those layers that you talked about.
Yep. A common tool in no-till methodology is called a broad fork. And so it's a giant fork with a bunch of tines, and you jam it into the soil and you just kind of crack the soil open. And so you do that all the way down the row. And so that helps to open up the soil year to year. But instead of using a rototiller, which shreds the soil into millions of tiny little pieces and really breaks up all that microbiology, we're just cracking open the soil. And so then those amendments are able to get down through those cracks. And yeah, something we didn't talk a whole lot about here, because we have talked about it previously, is amendments and fertilizers. Um, you kind of got me on a riff. Um,
Go for it.
I highly recommend amending based on a soil test. Depending on how serious you are about this, if it's just a small hobby plot, a couple of rows, compost and gypsum, um, and 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 some balanced organic fertilizer is going to be a great foundation. If you're really going for a high quality scenario, you want a maximum yield, and you want to take it really seriously, you would pair what we've learned today with a soil analysis, which would then come with a recommendation of fertilizers. It means additional capital investment into the plot, but it can also result in a lot more yield. Um, so yeah.
Cool. Okay, great. And then the topsoil part, maybe I just don't get this, but you said it's 40% soil and then comes the other measurements. Now that it has to be topsoil, so do you just buy that or is there a way to like, are you creating your
All right,
own?
so I'll give a scenario for that one.
Okay.
I see a lot of people, they get a nice, they get a new house, a new garden, and they scrape a lot of the area. They literally scrape the topsoil and they pile it off to the side and then build boxes, garden boxes on top of it. Or even when building a new house, a ton of topsoil is scraped off to the side. And we only have this much topsoil here in the foothills anyway.
Hmm.
But also in the process of clearing for fire safety, that will also create topsoil that will blow away. You can rake leaves out from under your trees. There's a lot of different ways you can get topsoil. That might just mean clay. That might just mean raking up clay from the area,
Hmm.
and that is okay. You can use that combination in a raised bed, as opposed to importing 100% of the material.
Okay. It's a complex process to me. I've never made my own soil before, so this is all very fascinating and very new to me. And speaking of, I've never really understood adding the sand to the organic matter part. I always thought that was generally just for like cacti or succulent type plants. So you mentioned not really wanting to add very much of it, but what would those measurements look like if you were going to add that to organic matter?
Um, it would
If that
be
was something you could
it
even
would be in the tune of like 1 to 2% of your total soil volume.
okay,
So we're not talking about very much,
very much, yeah.
because in with Sierra clay soils, compost is going to go a long way to open it up. And then past those clay soils is a lot of rock. And so once you get past the clay soils, there's actually a lot of percolation. The water slips through very quickly. So if you add too much sand, you can very quickly create too much drainage. And sand also minimizes your soil's ability to hold on to nutrient. The organic matter and the clay holds nutrient very well, which you want. Uh, Keep you from having to add lots of fertilizer year after year.
And I guess it must be plant dependent too, right? So
Very plant
depending on
dependent.
what you're actually planting, might actually like to have more drainage or whatever.
Exactly. If we're talking about cannabis, it's somewhere in the middle to the liking more drainage side. Um, but if we're talking about, cactus or aloe or any number of other things, uh, then a little bit of sand would be beneficial because it likes to dry out a little bit more. When people get really into growing cannabis, they learn what they like to do, and I'm not one to say what is the best and what isn't, but I see a lot of skilled growers want to have control over dry backs, meaning I meaning some people might want a soil that has to be watered every day so that if they want to dry the roots back at a certain stage, which is usually early flower, to prevent excessive stretch, they can just turn off the water for a day or two, and boom, the soil is immediately much drier. People like myself, I don't want to use a lot of water. And I'm okay with my plants stretching. I just accept that as a reality. And so if I turn off my water, my plants won't show any sign of drought, no wilt, for 5, 6, 7 days because there's so much water holding capacity in that soil, in that native soil, from adding lots and lots of organic matter.
You can buy water measure things so you can stick down to the soil, right? To make sure
Yeah.
you're not like if you are like the kind of person who just digs your fingers in and you're like, oh, it's dry, but you're saying that it's actually, 10 inches down. There could be a ton of water
Yeah.
down there.
Yeah.
What are some tools you could use?
So if you Google water meter or soil water meter, you'll get a really shitty tool, pardon my language. If you Google tensiometer, you will get a good tool. I'll type that out. Tensiometer.
Tensiometer. Tensiometer. Oh, okay.
Okay. That is the real tool that you'd use to measure moisture in your soil. Here, I'll actually throw another thing. I think it's called the Blue Mat.
This is all going in the chat, everyone. If you are interested, you can look in the chat and copy and paste
Okay, so
these.
I just threw in there Blue Mat Moisture Meter. That's a company out there, I'm unaffiliated, that has a fancy digital meter with a clay cone on the bottom. And it is a tensiometer. It's a very good one and it's easy to use. So check that one out.
Cool. Awesome. I have one more question, but feel free, everyone, to ask your questions. If you have any, raise your hand, put them in the Q&A, put them in the chat. Okay, my last question is, I was just curious about the pine and cedar mulching, why you have to wait 2 years for that to cure because of the smell. Why is that?
Okay, so fresh pine and cedar, I'll say, is great for walkways or mulching somewhere that you don't want anything to grow. Uh, it's also flammable, so that's something to consider. The smell, the pine and cedar smell, is a combination of, uh, well, they're VCs, volatile compounds. There's thiols and um, and terpenes and other things that are part of the plant's makeup as antimicrobial compounds. So
Mm.
those really strong things, those essential oils that we smell, are to the plant, it's protection from fungus. They are antimicrobial, but they evaporate. And so once they evaporate after a year or more, and you can't smell it anymore, then those wood chips are prime microbe food. But if they still smell like those oils, the microbes will not be able to consume them as quickly, and it's not going to be as beneficial. So aged wood chips are always the way to go. I personally have 3 or 4 huge piles of wood chips at home, and I use one per year, and I try to replace one every year. And so when I'm using wood chips, they're already a couple years aged, and digging into that pile, it's full of life. There's fungal strands growing all through it, and all kinds of millipedes crawling around and eating on it. And so it's pre-digested. It's almost like pre-composted. And you can just do that by having a mountain of wood chips just sitting there. It will get better just with age.
Wow.
Uh, I think aged wood chips are one of the most underrated ingredients you could come up with. If you can get a system where you have an aging pile 3 to 4 years old at all times, uh, you'll you'll be in good shape.
Oh, that's really interesting. All right, cool. Well, that's all the questions I have. Does anyone have any questions before we wrap up here? You have a few minutes left, and Daniel is a wealth of knowledge, and is happy to answer your questions here while we're on the webinar. If you don't have any questions right now, or if you think of anything afterward, you can email Daniel at downohmfarms@gmail.com. And that's basically it. I don't see any questions popping up or any raised hands right now, so I think we're good. Thank you so
All
much,
right.
Daniel, for being here. You're awesome as usual and appreciate your knowledge.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you being here as well.
All right, take care, everyone. Bye.